Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and this is Voice of the Global South. All right then, let's get started. On the show this week, the US and Iran hold nuclear talks. Can Tehran cut a deal with Washington, D.C. and prevent a war? India arrests an American YouTuber for visiting an off-limits island in the Bay of Bengal and attempting to make contact with an isolated tribe. And a biopic on the life and work of an Indian lawyer reignites the debate whether the UK will apologize for the Jallianwala Bagh massacre of 1919. All that and much more coming up on Voice of the Global South. 7 years after quitting the Iran nuclear deal, Trump has opened talks with Khamenei's emissaries. His envoy Steve Witkoff and Iran's foreign minister Syed Abbas Araghchi headed the talks in the Gulf nation of Oman on Saturday. An Iranian official said on X that the Iranian and US delegations were seated in separate rooms and they conveyed their points of view and positions to each other through the Omani foreign minister. The US hopes to jumpstart negotiations over Iran's rapidly advancing nuclear program. Araghchi met with his Omani counterpart Badr bin Hamad al-Busaidi and others before the start of the negotiations with the US.
Our intention is to reach a fair and honorable agreement from an equal position. And if the other side also comes from the same position, then hopefully there will be a chance for an initial understanding that will lead to a path of negotiations.
The US-Iran talks follow a number of moves by Trump in the last 3 months. In February, Trump restored a maximum pressure campaign on Tehran. Then he wrote a letter to Khamenei in March, to which Tehran replied the same month. Oman, which is seen as a neutral player, has a history of facilitating dialogue between the US and Iran. Saturday's talks saw Omani Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi shuttling between the two sides, a format reminiscent of past indirect negotiations. Araghchi wrote in the Washington Post newspaper that pursuing indirect negotiations is not a tactic or reflection of ideology, but a strategic choice rooted in experience. We face a significant wall of mistrust and harbor serious doubts about the sincerity of intentions, made worse by US insistence on resuming the maximum pressure policy prior to any diplomatic interaction, unquote. The US and Iran had held indirect talks during Biden's term but made little or no progress. The last known direct negotiations between the two governments were under Obama. Incidentally, Oman was involved in mediating US-Iran talks as early as July 2012 when Washington, D.C. and Tehran held preliminary talks. That was followed by a 3-day secret meeting between US and Iranian officials in Oman in March 2013. It eventually led to the signing of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal among the US, Iran, China, the UK, France, Russia, Germany and the European Union. On 7th April, Trump caught the world off guard when he announced direct talks with Tehran. But Iran quickly pushed back. Araghchi clarified that the discussions would be indirect, mediated by Oman. He framed the negotiations as both an opportunity and a test for the US to prove its sincerity. Adding complexity to the situation, the US imposed fresh sanctions on Iran's nuclear program just days ahead of the talks. It targeted 5 entities and 1 individual linked to Iran's nuclear energy program. The message was clear. The US will keep the pressure on, even as it talks to Tehran. Separately, the U.S. deployed 6 B-2 bombers to the Indian Ocean island of Diego Garcia. Now, there are only 20 B-2 bombers in the U.S. Air Force's inventory, so they are usually used sparingly. Satellite images show that the 6 bombers were only recently relocated to the U.S.-British military base on the island. The B-2 has stealth technology, meaning it can fly undetected. It can also carry the 14,000-kilogram bunker buster bomb that is designed to destroy targets deep underground. Now, that is the weapon the U.S. or possibly Israel could use to take out Iran's nuclear facilities. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that it was up to Iran to determine whether the deployment of B-2 bombers was a message to Iran. But the dramatic show of force projection and strategic signaling dovetails with Trump's warning of using military force if Iran does not agree to a nuclear deal.
But with Iran, if it requires military, we're going to have military. Israel will obviously be very much involved in that. He'll be the leader of that. But nobody leads us. We do what we want to do.
Not to be outdone, Iran threatened to suspend cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog if the US kept up its rhetoric. Ali Shamkhani, an advisor to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said on X, and I quote him here, "Continued external threats and putting Iran under the conditions of a military attack could lead to deterrent measures like the expulsion of IAEA inspectors and ceasing cooperation with it," unquote. He added for good measure that transferring enriched material to safe and undisclosed locations in Iran could also be on the agenda. Simultaneously, Iran showcased what it calls advancements in its nuclear program. On 9th April, which is Iran's National Nuclear Technology Day, President Masoud Pezeshkian visited an exhibition that displays the country's achievements in the nuclear fuel cycle and other cutting-edge technologies. He said again that Iran has no intention of building a nuclear weapon.
We are holding talks, as the Supreme Leader has stated. We are engaging indirectly with dignity and pride, and with every assurance necessary to show that we are not pursuing a nuclear bomb. They have come 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times to investigate, and they can come investigate again. We have not been, are not, and will not be pursuing a nuclear bomb.
But it has done little to ease concerns in Washington, D.C. and Tel Aviv. It's not clear if Trump is looking to limit Iran's nuclear capabilities, similar to the 2015 deal clinched by Obama, or demand the complete destruction of its facilities. His envoy Witkoff has spoken about a verification program so that nobody worries about weaponization of Iran's nuclear material. But Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is calling for the full dismantling of Iran's nuclear program. He wants to see the Libya model applied to Iran. Remember, in 2003, Libya unilaterally renounced its weapons of mass destruction and announced the dismantling of its nuclear program.
We agree
that Iran will not have nuclear weapons. This can be done in an agreement, but only if this agreement is a Libya-style agreement. That we go in, blow up the facilities, dismantle all the equipment under American supervision and American execution. That is good. A second option, that it will not happen. They will simply drag out the talks, and then the option is military. Everyone understands that. We discussed that at length.
What makes Israel anxious is the International Atomic Energy Agency's latest report that says that Iran had an estimated 274.8 kilograms of uranium enriched up to 60%, nearing the weapons grade of 90%. Various other intelligence assessments say the same thing, that Iran can now accumulate enough weapons-grade uranium in 1 week and build a nuclear weapon in a few months' time. Do the math and you'll find that Iran is only a hop, skip and jump away from going nuclear, should it choose to do so. Iran says that there is a chance that for the US to finally have a president of peace. Whether to seize that opportunity is a choice. The unmistakable reference here is to Trump's obsession with winning the Nobel Peace Prize. The question is, does Trump's best hope for a Nobel now rest with Iran? To quote Arakchi, the ball is now in America's court. Clearly, these talks mark a critical moment in US-Iran relations, which are at a turning point. They could either ease regional tensions or set the stage for further escalation. What will it be? Time will tell. An American YouTuber has been arrested for illegally entering a prohibited area in India and trying to make contact with a reclusive tribe that inhabits a remote island in the Bay of Bengal. The Indian government says his actions posed a serious threat to the safety and well-being of the tribe, whose contact with outsiders is prohibited by law in order to protect the indigenous way of life. Raghini Sudhir Chaure reports.
On March 31st, India arrested Mikhailo Polyakov, a 24-year-old US tourist and social media influencer, for trespassing into the remote North Sentinel Island. Armed with a camera, a coconut, and a can of Diet Coke, Polyakov tried to make contact with the isolated and reclusive Sentinelese tribe, all for a YouTube video. He says he was searching for good content. Polyakov blew a whistle off the shore of the island in a bid to attract the attention of the tribe. He then landed on the island for around 5 minutes, left the coconut and can of Diet Coke as offerings on the shore, collected sand samples and recorded footage using his GoPro camera. H.S. Dhaliwal, the police chief of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, said that Polyakov had landed in Port Blair on 26th March. He was spotted taking off from a beach in South Andaman on 29th March just after midnight. The police has since filed a normal complaint against Polyakov under the Foreigners Act of 1946 for entering a protected tribal reserve or restricted area without permission. The tribal lands are protected under the Andaman and Nicobar Islands Regulation of 1956, which prohibits unauthorized entry to the locations.
Basic investigation is already complete. Of course, how this footage, etc., will also be forensically examined, and whatever is necessary will be done to take this case to logical conclusion.
A local court sent Polyakov to 14-day judicial custody. He is set to appear again in court on 17th April. The charges carry a possible sentence of up to 5 years in prison and a fine. Incidentally, it was not the first time Polyakov had attempted to visit the island. Previous efforts included attempts in October 2024 when he was thwarted by hotel staff while trying to kayak to the island, and another in January 2025. In that instance, he attempted to attract attention by using a whistle before leaving his offerings. He also illegally filmed the remote Jarawa tribe while visiting the Baratang Islands. Survival International, a group protecting tribal rights, called the act deeply disturbing. The group's director, Caroline Pierce, said that Polyakov's actions not only endangered his own life, they put the lives of the entire Sentinelese tribe at risk. Polyakov is not the first to be held guilty of trespass. In 2018, an American tourist, 27-year-old John Chow, was killed by the tribe using a bow and arrow. He had paid local fishermen to ferry him to the North Sentinel Island. In 2006, the tribe had killed 2 fishermen who had accidentally landed on the shore. Meet the Sentinelese, the last truly isolated tribe on Earth. They are an indigenous people who inhabit the North Sentinel Island. They may not even know what YouTube is, but now they're fighting to stay off it. They live on an island barely 60 square kilometers wide in the heart of the Bay of Bengal. with no telephone, no electricity, and zero contact with the outside world, and they intend to keep it that way. The North Sentinel Island is forbidden to foreigners and Indian citizens alike. It is out of bounds even to the Indian Navy in a bid to protect its reclusive inhabitants who number only about 200. It is one of more than 500 islands that form a part of the Andaman and Nicobar archipelago. This chain of islands is situated between the Bay of Bengal to the west and the Andaman Sea to the east. It shares a maritime border with Indonesia to the south, Myanmar to the northeast, and Thailand to the southeast. Only 38 of the islands are inhabited, and among those, none is as fiercely protected or as deeply mysterious as the North Sentinel Island. The Indian law enforces an exclusion zone of 5-kilometer radius around the North Sentinel Island. No tourists, no fishermen, no researchers, not because the tribe is in hiding, but because they want to preserve themselves and protect the way of their life. According to scientists, the ancestors of the Sentinelese tribe may date to 30,000 years ago, part of the first wave of humans out of Africa. While other humans spread, mixed, and migrated, the Sentinelese stayed, cut off, untouched, undisturbed. While others moved into cities, discovered agriculture, and built empires, the Sentinelese continued living as hunter-gatherers, Stone Age survival in the 21st century. The tribe never learnt farming. They didn't need to. They forage fruits, fish in shallow waters, and hunt with handcrafted spears and bows. They live among nature, with nature, and in nature. History has a habit of coming knocking at our door. In 1867, a shipwreck brought outsiders to the island's shore. Survivors were attacked. In 1880, a British naval officer, Maurice Vidal Portman, tried to establish contact with the tribe. Portman is best known for documenting some of the tribes between 1879 and 1901 when he was posted as a superintendent there. He ended up kidnapping an elderly tribal couple and their 4 children. The couple died within days, likely from diseases that their immune systems had never encountered. The children were returned, but it may have already been too late. For people unexposed to certain diseases, even a handshake can be fatal. What Portman called civilization, the Sentinelese saw it as an invasion. From that day onwards, the message from the island was clear: stay away. The world didn't stop trying though. In the 1970s and through the 90s, an Indian anthropologist, T.N. Pandit, led several expeditions to the island. He brought with him coconuts, pigs, and even dolls as a gift. Each time, the tribe responded the same way, killing the pig, burying the doll, and rejecting all contact with outsiders. And then came a moment of hope. In 1991, another Indian anthropologist, Madhumala Chattopadhyay, led an expedition to the island. The Sentinelese warmed up to her. For the first time ever, the tribe accepted coconuts from her. A woman from the tribe even stopped a man from firing an arrow at her. But peace was short-lived. After 1991, all attempts at contact ended in hostility. Was it fear? A sense of invasion? Or was it simply a line drawn by people who had already seen too much? In 2004, when a tsunami devastated the region, India flew helicopters over the island to look for survivors. They were met with a hail of arrows. The message again was unmistakable: we are alive and we don't want your help. Elsewhere in the Andamans, the Jarava tribe, once isolated, now struggles with obesity, addiction, and cultural loss. Modern society offered them medicine, music, and marketing, but took away their traditions, languages, and peace. The Sentinelese live on, coexisting with nature. They've mastered sustainability while the outside world struggles with it. International law is clear. The UN's Indigenous and Tribal Peoples Convention protects their right to remain uncontacted. India follows a hands-off, eyes-on policy. Watching from afar, ready to help, but only if asked. And so far, they haven't.
In a world racing to connect every corner, the North Sentinel Island remains the only dot on map which remains untouched. It's a place where silence speaks volume. The Sentinelese, they don't need us. They don't need our cities, our gadgets, or our civilization. The only thing they have been asking for is peace. And it's time for us to realize that the greatest thing that we can offer them is not a can of Diet Coke, but for us to listen their demand, for us to let them be in peace. With camera person Saurabh, Ragini Sudhir Chaure for DD India.
On 13th April 1919, British troops opened fire on a crowd in Amritsar, India, killing hundreds of people and injuring many more. The Jallianwala Bagh massacre was a turning point in India's struggle for independence from British colonial rule. More than a century later, a biopic on the life and work of the late lawyer and statesman Sir Chettur Shankaran Nair reignites the debate whether the UK will offer an apology for the massacre. Ragini Sudhir Chaure has more.
Amritsar, India, April 13, 1919. What was meant to be a peaceful gathering becomes a nightmare written in blood. General Reginald Dyer, acting on behalf of the British Crown, orders his troops to open fire on an unsuspecting crowd of unarmed men, women and children. They fire until the bullets run out. About 1,000 people are killed. An equal number is injured. A massacre so brutal that it shakes the soul of India and stains the conscience of the British colonialists. It changed the course of history and the complexion of the struggle of India to overthrow the yoke of British rule. Today, a century later, the truth returns to the courtroom and to the big screen. Kesari Chapter 2, starring Akshay Kumar, is inspired by the book The Case That Shook the Empire by Raghu Pallad, the great-grandson of C. Sankaran Nair and Pushpa Palak. The film is based on the life of C. Sankaran Nair, a lawyer and statesman who fought against the British Raj to uncover the truth about the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. He was one man against a regime. The courtroom became his battlefield. Justice, his only weapon.
उनके हाथ में कौन से हथियार आपने देखे?
Sir Chettur Shankaran Nair was born in 1857 into a wealthy family in Kerala's Palakkad district. He was a lawyer and nationalist who also served as the president of the Indian National Congress in 1897. As a member of the Viceroy's Executive Council, he resigned in protest after the massacre, refusing to be part of the colonial administration. In 1922, Nair wrote a book titled Gandhi and Anarchy. In it, he criticized Michael O'Dwyer, the Lieutenant Governor of Punjab during the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. After being removed from his post, O'Dwyer returned to England and filed a defamation case against Nair. The case was heard in the High Court in London, and Kesari Chapter 2 is based on this legal battle. Coinciding with the 106th anniversary of the massacre, history echoes again, not from India, but from the halls of the British Parliament.
Admitting to what went wrong and formally giving an apology to the people of India.
The Conservative lawmaker asks the British government to formally give an apology to the people of India for the massacre. Blackman says that in 2019, the then British Prime Minister Theresa May described the Jallianwala Bagh massacre as a shameful scar on the British Indian history, but stopped short of a formal apology. In a statement marking the 100th anniversary of the massacre, Theresa May had reiterated the regret already expressed by the British government. From Parliament to the people, from books to the big screen, the reckoning has begun. Some stories demand to be told, this one demands to be heard. Ragini Sudhir Chaure's report for DD India.
And with that, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.